Drag Race Season 6. Exeter would be impressed at the notes I've made, and so will you. And I'm sure you've noticed we're already recording. So, should I jump straight into it, or have you got anything to say pre-credits?
No, go for it.
Maude, it's a Maude Cast. It's the street man and boosty villain. 4K demands a skeleton of a character, but not a ghost yet. A regular, normal woman's voice, often motionless and blinking. Purveyor of fine victuals, supportive wife in the role of a lifetime. Maude Cast.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Episode 8. Episode 8, like an infinity on its side. Who would have even thought we would reach episode 8?
The second of the numbers from Lost that we have reached.
Oh, and our second Lost reference in a row.
Is it?
Yeah. Last week
what was the other one?
Last week we referenced how. So last week we talked about the Tempest and how Maude. It would have been better, as with all of Shakespeare's plays, had Maude Flanders appeared in it, and how it was a prequel to Lost. And you know what? We actually weren't the only person who done that. So I did a bit of a search in a section that we might later call A Week Too Late. And there's this T-shirt on the internet called "The Tempest is really just a prequel of Lost." So we're not the only ones who had that great idea. You know, another TV show that would have been that would be better if Maude Flanders was in it.
The Tiger King.
Yes. Well, I was going to say all of them. So that's covered under that umbrella. So
I do have a strange thing to say actually about Lost. Now that you've mentioned it. Now that I've mentioned it. When I've nearly finished number 7. When I was putting the pictures on, I decided because you asked me to pick numbers last week.
Yes.
And the 2 numbers that I picked were 2 of the numbers from Lost. So the image I put on was the number from Lost. And then I realised over that image, we then started talking about the Tempest and Lost, which was not connected.
It's spooky. Spooky, that's all I can say. And I'd like it, maybe if we could have multiple irrelevant Lost references scattered through this podcast. That would be good. Something for the Lost fan who's wandered in here and he's kind of stuck because maybe their arms are behind their back and they can't turn off the podcast. So they got to listen against their will to this Maude Flanders-based podcast. But every little droplet of Lost that we can give them will just brighten up their day while they're in that prison. So did you mean to drop a Twin Peaks quote in there as well then, or was that accidental? No, I don't know. This is I don't know. What did I say
about arms being bent back? That's a Laura Palmer creepy dream quote.
Creepy dream. No, but if we can drop in Twin Peaks references, that should help if there was somebody who was also in a different basement being held hostage and being forced to listen to this podcast. I fear we may be in the weeds here a little bit within the first few minutes of this show, and I'd like to just get this Maude train back on track by telling you that this episode is brought to you by the MR Maude Corporation, a subsidiary of the Dibney Incorporated, multi-global national corporation. Our sponsors, as you know, are Vivacious, as I've mentioned already, Cerebus, the Aardvark, and Jacques, rest in peace. We talked about this, and I said no, Derrida. It's serious as heck, and I want to throw a Derrida quote at you and see if you can recontextualize it. Okay?
Yes.
Monsters cannot be announced. One cannot say, here are our monsters, without immediately turning the monsters into pets.
The end of that was unexpected. I thought you were going to say, like, heroes, not pets. So, Maude's a bit of a monster, but nobody ever says so. It's just sort of subtext. Well, it's not really subtext.
Just text. It's text. She's just a straight-out rotter. She's a straight-out rotter at times. And guess what Deaded is saying there is if you announce the monster and say, oh, here's the big bad guy, and then you actually defang the big bad guy. You got to have that mystery and that sneakiness. So maybe Maude, as you say, she is a monster, but we don't announce her monstrousness, though we do see it often.
Yes, more and more frequently as time goes on.
But I've said this before, right? Do you think that before she dies, we see her getting worse and worse, but is she just as bad after death?
Yes. sometimes there's an episode that I really don't like. It's literally the second to last one we're going to look at, though, so we've got a while. But
All right.
she's a ghost in that, and she's just a bit of a dick to everybody.
Can't say I'm not looking forward to Maude's dickishness. She is a little bit of a jagbag, often, isn't she? But then again, she's often playing that role of the supporter. And so she has those two sides, somewhat of a Jellicle and Hyde, you might say, if you were writing a cat-based musical based on a Victorian horror. So what I'd like to point out is that I love the bird song that's often going on. And it's not fake, it's real birds that you have trapped in your room.
Yes.
Hundreds of birds in your room. Unlike a cat lady, you're a bird man.
The Birdman.
The bird man. So...
Keaton.
He did a good job in that, didn't he?
Yes.
Now, last week we announced the bombshell that we had found wrapped up in cheap vines in a dusty corner of the Maudeorail. We had found what can only be described as the diary of a dead woman, and that dead woman is Maude Flanders. Now, last week you did us the honor of reading a page from that diary. Now, I'm not going to say that you want to be giving away all of Maude's secrets, but how do you feel about dropping another batch of knowledge on us from that tome?
It seems only right.
All righty. Please lay it at our feet.
Would you like to pick a page or a time?
Yeah. I'd like to pick page 93.
Okay. It says...
It's the 18th of September, 1997. I'm preparing for a trip away with my mother to something like the Twin Cities. I can't remember. Ned'll tell me. I'm kind of excited to go, but I'm still a little bit nervous because I haven't seen my mother for a while, and I know that she's having trouble at the minute with repressed memories of being a human limb. So I'm really looking forward to spending a bit more time with her. I think Helen Lovejoy has been stealing pickles from Maude's tavern. Every time I see her, she reeks of pickles. But I know for a fact that Jessica Lovejoy is allergic to pickles, so she can't be taking them home. And from what I gather from the last time Maude was outside my window, he told me that the pickle numbers are down. To be continued.
The whole pickle thing for me was a revelation because I've never even considered that a pickle thief would be in our midst. I did want to follow up on, there was more Lovejoy bashing there. You know, obviously on the surface they're kind of friends, but it seems like she likes to take private jabs at Helen Lovejoy whenever she can. Now, last week she made the bold claim, now I don't know what date that page was from, but she made the bold claim that Helen Lovejoy was having an affair. Now, is that something we knew from canon before, or is that new canon? Because I do want to point out that this diary, being Maude's actual diary, is 100% canon. Everything that is said is canon. So...
Yeah, half and half. There's been speculation, but I think Maude's the first one to come out and say it. She did used to be a man, though.
Helen Lovejoy?
They did a throwaway line in, like, season 21 or something. So that's technically in there, that she was born Harold something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I did have a theory that's in the Maudeorail that one day you might come across, that Helen and Maude are somewhat interchangeable, especially in their backstories, but that's a revelation. Unless, of course, you're going to also claim that Maude was born a man.
No, we already know
more
that.
likely a baby male. To be born an actual man would be above and beyond expectations.
Yes. No, Maude was born. Maude is a cis female.
A baby girl.
She was born.
Exactly.
So shall we take a trip down to the Maude Flanders Internet Museum, theme park, database, book depository, fishmongery, hotcake restaurant, and insect shop? You haven't been there for a couple of weeks.
No.
So you can find us just off Worsley Men's Netto car park. Now, I know you're excited because it was only 7 years ago that you won this museum in a flanball competition, and the annual global flanball competition, obviously being held online this year, is coming up in 3 weeks, and our staff is training for it. So how's the training going for the flanball competition?
It's good. It's very intense, and they still have no idea that I'm gonna cancel on the morning that we're supposed to be doing it.
So you're going to withdraw our team from the competition?
Yeah, I'm gonna forfeit our team.
Out of spite?
It's morale building.
Team building, right? They're going through that adversity together.
Yeah, but I'm not telling anybody because I need them to be ready in case anything comes up. So they need the training still.
Okay, well, it's 3 weeks away.
Yeah, those 17 hours a day of training aren't going anywhere.
No, that's good morale there, especially, again, as we say, at these online times that are trying for some people. Now, some people think that some people were surprised when I told them about a flamball team. They thought Stamp was the only employee. But obviously, we have a staff of 75 people who work at the Maude Flanders Internet Museum Theme Park Database Book Depository Fishmongery and Hotkit Restaurant and Stag Beetle Emporium. So by no means is this a one stamp operation.
No, there's loads of people, and I keep telling them how good of a job they're doing and how there's no way that we can't possibly win this year.
So building them up just to knock them down?
Yeah,
nice.
It's textbook emotional manipulation.
It's Machiavellian, and there's no other word for it other than sneaky. That'd be another word for it.
It's Maude.
It is Maude, isn't it? It embodies Maude, the very dream of that. Now, just to shift gears a little bit, because as you know, we're still up to our neck in debt for this £300,000 we owe for throwing that Sphinx and flooding those old people's homes. So we got sued for £300,000, and basically, as a plea bargain to get a fiver knocked off, you are writing a one-man play about Maude. Can you tell us a little bit about what the plot might be and how you're moving along in that script?
Yeah, I can't tell you anything about plot, but I can tell you that I've started the casting call and it's a one-man show.
You can have other people in it though. One man's just a suggestion.
No, I'm going to stick to the rules, but I am still going to do a casting call and tell people that they've got the role, and then just never contact them.
I like it. You're setting us up for more pain there, but I can't say I can't say that I'm not excited about this journey that you're on. So can you tell me anything about the play? Because as Judge Roswell, no relation, said, this play needs to be put on before your birthday. Specifically and strangely, she said that if it gets to your birthday and you've not put it on, then we're all going to jail.
Yeah, it'll be done. The only thing I can tell you is that there's a 7.5-minute dance interlude featuring Stamp in a wedding gown. Yeah,
we haven't heard a lot from Stamp, probably for the best, considering that we also owe him a large amount of cash, and there's suggestions that members of his family are coming around with weapons to extract justice. But let's move on from that. So we've got, by my accounts, and I'm kind of getting a little bit lost after we got off into the weeds there, I think we got 4 minutes of government-regulated banter time before we hit content. So give me a number. The Maudetorium is now up to 150 Maude tidbits.
Wow.
Give me one. Give me a number.
19.
Ooh, this actually came from somebody, one of our real fans on the internet, who threw this at us the other week and said that they thought it was really weird that Maude always wore like a saucy blue eyeshadow. What's your take on why Maude wears such a seductive and kind of garish and outlandish kind of eyeshadow all the time?
Yeah, it is a strange thing. I think she likes to feel attractive, and I don't think Ned never really makes comment on how she looks. It's usually Homer or Mo. So maybe it's for Ned's benefit. Maybe she just wants a compliment from Ned, and it's just not coming.
Yeah, but Ned, being an evangelical conservative, is not likely to be impressed by that behavior that he and even Maude might describe at their worst as Jezebelish.
It also might just be to irritate him.
Ooh.
Maybe again, in the cultivation of chaos, maybe she wants someone to leer at her the way Homer did, and for Ned to step in and defend her and fight.
Oh, so she a shit stirrer, as we call them, down our way.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe she's wearing the eyeshadow to attract those lascivious glances from those animals. That's foreshadowing something we're going to talk about later. Of those animals, so that Neddy will step in with his guns and just give Homer a damn good beating to within an inch of his life.
Maybe. There's always the possibility that she's just doing it for herself because she likes it.
Yeah, she likes it because I'm worth it, because Maude's worth it. Makes her look beautiful. And like you said, she's one of the most attractive characters. They actually had to they almost broke the rules just to make her more attractive. Now, she's no Jessica Rabbit, I'll give you that. But in terms of the Simpsons world, she's up there.
Yeah, she's
Not
top
that I'm
five.
going to objectify Maude. Purely in terms of their aim of making an attractive character. I think they were relatively successful with Maude Flanders.
They had the same issues with Manjula, I believe, when they brought Manjula in, because they wanted her to be attractive, but Simpsons characters tend to not, to just look cartoonish, so they have, Manjula has a similar eye and nose kind of shape, actually, as well as Helen and Maude.
Are you looking at a figure of Manjula you have on a shelf over there, or is your attention been attracted by maybe a shiny thing?
There's just a couple of cats fighting in the corner, and I wanted to see how it played out.
Wow!
No, I'm looking at Manjula stood next to Larry Burns and Handsome Mo.
I think the listeners would love to see some photographs of your Simpsons collection, so feel free to drop those in when you do those awesome visuals for the show. And thank you again for those, because those visuals are top drawer, top notch, and top of the pops. We're almost at time, almost into content, but I want to squeeze one more Maudetorium fact in there. Give me a number between 1 and 150.
33.
33. Recurring. 33. Old Flanders. So in at least 2 instances. Yeah. I got a picture here, actually, a screenshot, but you know what I'm talking about. It's got an old Ned. He's all wrinkled, and Maude's sat next to him, and Selma and Patty are sat behind. I don't know the context for this. I'm sure you do. But an old Maude, old Flanders. Question mark. Come on, tell me.
Yeah, it's from Lisa's wedding, the future episode. I think I might have mentioned it before. It's sort of a vision predicted by a psychic. So that's how you get around it. It's not just an episode set in the future. It's an episode where somebody predicts Lisa's future, and Maude made it.
So sadly, it's not reflective of the true Simpsons future.
That episode in The Simpsons, if you were to watch that now, in The Simpsons world, it is set 10 years in the future, but in our world, it is now set 10 years in the past.
Oh, you know what? There's another Maudetorium one where I talk about that a little bit, because,
time is a flat circle,
as Matthew McConaughey would like to say. And, one day we'll dig into that notion of elastic time even further. Maybe we'll just do a whole 20-hour episode on it, about how Simpsons time is a flat circle. However, it's that time when, against our will, rather than talking about less relevant things and making up silly stories, we actually have to address the issue at hand. What are the episodes we're talking about today, Nathan O'Leary, my biological brother?
It's a good question. I believe it is Duffless, Marge versus the Monorail, and 2 others.
That's a very informative introduction, so let's leap straight into clip 1. This is Flanders winning. Now, I had to go at this last week, because you sent it to me a week too early. There's a new segment called A Week Too Early, where Nathan sends me clips for next week's show, and then we realize it's not the right clip. But I think that's fun for me. It gives me 2 stabs. Fun to scratch, Ned might say. So clip 1, the Flanders, Ned, wins second prize in some blimp-style competition, and the prize is a handsome shoe buffer. Now, Maude is delighted, and we actually get a face-forward Maude. And in my notes, which you can access should you so desire, we get a full-on picture of face-forward Maude, which is very unusual. And Maude is delighted. And yeah, she
looks happy. Marge does mention post-mortem. Nice. That Maude owned several pairs of shoes, so I think shoes could be added to something. I don't think Maude collects shoes, but I'd say she has an interest in them. So now she gets to keep them super clean and shiny.
Marge, after death, suggested Maude even had a fetish for shoes. She had like 4 pairs.
Yeah, something like that. What was the other thing? She's happy. And again, this is the first time we've really seen something good happen to them.
I mean, good things a few 5. I mean, the Leftorium episode where they saved where the shop was saved was good, but it was the precursor to that was horrible. Whereas this is just a straight.
Yeah, they've had moments that, like, things have come back around for them, but this is just, there was no trauma beforehand. They just entered a competition and came second place.
And I'm guessing Homer wins first place.
He does, which in itself is a coincidence that two neighbours would win the first two prizes.
And a reversal of the standard trope that the Flanders are better than the Simpsons and always have a better life, though in reality they have horrific things happen to them on a regular basis. The grass is always greener for Homer. But he seems to forget that Flanders is losing wives left, right, and centre and having his house destroyed and his business destroyed. None of which has really happened to Homer.
Yeah, it literally, I don't know if it cut off that clip before Homer speaks, but he looks sad and says, "I wanted to win a shoe buffer."
Yes, he's a very selfish man, Homer J. Simpson. But this ain't about Homer, so plowing on to clip 2. So this, I'm guessing, is a different episode, right? So is that the only time that Maude actually appears in the Duffless episode? Yeah,
that's it. There's no background scenes, nothing.
It's too bad those people were robbed of a chance to get a little bit of Maude into their eyeglasses. However, clip 2. So this one, she appears a little bit more, but not too much. Town hall meeting. Mayor Quimby is throwing out some figures which Lisa hotly contests. But then Maude, bold as brass, just stands up and says, "Excuse me, maybe we could use the money to hire firemen to finally put out the blaze on the east side of town." Now, permanent fires in Springfield seems to be a fairly common thing. Isn't there like a tire factory that's also permanently on fire?
Yeah, there's the tire fire that's sort of always there, which I kind of just assumed that's what she was talking about here for some reason. But it's weird that they didn't specify that. Maybe it was too early. Maybe they hadn't introduced that yet. But yeah, she's straight up. She's the first, but this is the first time we've seen her, like, not just in the Flanders or the Simpsons family, but she's the first person in the whole town to stand up and say something.
She has that bravery at times. For all of her quietness, she doesn't seem to be against speaking out whenever she feels like it.
She has the confidence, and she's unshaken by Homer's attempts to put her off by yelling boring at her.
Well, Homer just stands up and shouts, "Yeah, boring," and there is just no reaction from Marge. She just totally blanks him and just ignores Homer J, as she is, as really, that is the best course of action. She ignored him in the last episode when he fell asleep pretty much on her in church. She ignored him or tried to when he wished evil on them after that chicken bone incident. So it's probably the best course of action, really, with Homer. However, it then cuts immediately to Mr. Schnurub, which, spoiler, is Mr. Burns with a mustache on. And the only thing I could say about this is, first of all, was there any resolution to Maude, or did Homer just shout her down and then she sat down with no more conversation? And second,
yeah, that's it. That there's no her idea isn't taken any further than that. To be fair, they are distracted because Marge has an idea that they almost all vote for, and then they get distracted by the arrival of Lyle Lanley.
But that's several minutes or seconds later. She stands up, she says a perfectly reasonable request, which she's ignored by everybody and shouted down by Homer Simpson. And I can only imagine she sits down. What's going through her mind? What's on her face when she sits down, having just stood up, thrown out an idea, and then just been shouted down by her horrible neighbour, and then everyone just moves on as if she didn't say anything?
Yeah, nobody comes to her defence. Nobody does anything to help her. So she just...
Including Ned?
Yeah, I think that's the sad part about Maude's life, is that this is just something she's become adjusted to, and she just thinks... I don't think she takes it personally. I think she still thinks, well, that was a good idea, but, they're going to go with something else. And she's also clearly on board with the final idea, so...
Oh, yeah, she's persuaded, as are the rest of the town. But the other thing is, she sees Mr. Schnurb. Now, she's no fool. She knows it's Mr. Burns, and she sees him in his true wicked guise after seeing him. The last 2 times she's run into him, he's really been a saviour, especially when he dropped like almost 200 grand on them in the leftorium.
Yeah, this is the first time she's really seen him try. But again, she could naively believe that that's not Mr. Burns.
Yeah,
I'd like to think smarter than that.
Exactly. She ain't just some comic foil. But anyway, so she stands up, gives a good idea, gets shouted down, and then sees this monster step up and try to take the money. But then very quickly, she, as the rest of the town, are persuaded by Lyle Landley to invest all of their money in this monorail idea. And as Bart says, sorry, Mom, the mob has spoken. And then in true Busby Berkeley, like Hollywood style, they storm onto the steps of the town hall and they march down in sync. Maude and Ned are leading the charge. They're right there. A minute ago, they were almost at the front of the stage. Somehow they've managed, unlike last week's episode with the church where they held back, this time they've actually somehow managed to get themselves to the front alongside Police Chief Wiggum and Diamond Joe, and they're marching down the steps, full on song and dance, happily laughing. And this is one of the things you said about her, the singing in the ensemble. We're never going to be able to pick out Maude's voice in that. Is she still miming?
Yeah, but I think this might be, hearing everybody else sing might help her out a little bit. That happens a few more times yet. Okay. So I think this is the start of her starting to believe in herself, because she's got the dance moves down. She's dancing in sync to everybody else.
Absolutely.
It is interesting that after this, you don't see her at the monorail, event, and you don't see her on the monorail. This is the last time you see her in this episode.
Now we gotta give the Simpsons camera crew some, a little bit of slack. They might not catch everybody on camera, so it is possible that Maude was just slightly off camera. But also very possible that once again, she really put her weight behind something and then didn't show up. That seems to be a little bit of a trait for Maude as well. My
theory was that she felt a little bit swept up. She felt a little bit embarrassed that she got swept up in the whole mob mentality kind of situation, which does happen to her quite a lot, but I don't think she likes it about herself. So I think maybe out of pride or some kind of stubbornness, they thought, we're not bothered about this monorail, really. We got swept up, but we're going to go and put this fire out ourselves.
So one wild theory is while the rest of the town is riding the monorail, Ned and Maude are doing some amateur firefighting. But if it is the tire fire, then clearly they failed and probably inhaled a whole bunch of very noxious fumes. So win-win, one might say.
Yeah.
Where are the kids during this point? And, generally when we keep seeing, Maude and Ned out together, who's looking after the kids?
Well, I don't know, actually, because Marge makes a point of saying, wow, the whole town turned up. And then it cuts to, Snake or, just some, criminals just robbing everybody's houses. So the kids all the kids. I imagine there's some kind of side room at this town hall meeting where all the kids are being looked after by, ironically, a good choice would have been Maude, but let's say maybe the Sunday school teacher or Disco Stew.
It'd be good if Disco Stew ran a daycare centre. But obviously Lisa and Bart are in the room, so that theory is not without some holes. But, who knows, maybe it was optional for the kids.
Yeah, and maybe Lisa definitely would want to be involved in this kind of thing, and maybe Bart's there just to annoy her. Yeah. But were there any other kids?
Didn't see any.
No Ralph, no Milhouse, no Martin.
Nah, none of those. Moving on, clip 4. So we jump now into Maude's meatiest roles of today, and this is the Valentine's episode, which is what, Lisa the Beauty Queen? Is that the title?
No. This is called Duffless.
Oh, this one's called Duffless. Okay.
Yes, I'm afraid Lisa. Yeah, I do this a lot for some reason. I think it's because it's the Duff blimp that he wins, but I keep thinking that that episode with the shoe buffer, I keep saying it's Duffless, and it's Lisa the Beauty Queen.
So the one with the Duff blimp is Lisa the Beauty Queen with just that one little snippet. Now this one is Duffless, and that makes sense because Neddy goes through some tough times later. But so the Simpsons are at the table. It's Valentine's Day, and Marge has made an I love you out of bacon and eggs. It looks delicious for you meat eaters out there. Bart says to Homer, I'm sure you've got lots of things planned. And Homer tries to play it off because clearly he's done nothing, right, as you'd expect for Homer J. Nobody makes a big deal of Valentine's Day. Cut. Look out the window, and Ned Flanders is dressed as a full body costume as a giant love heart with a little pink guitar, and he's playing a version of Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm sexy, where he's changed the lyrics to.
If you think I'm cuddly and you want my company, come on, wifey, let me know.
He's Maude's gazing out of the window, so he's singing up to her almost Romeo and Juliet style. He's given Maude a single pink rose, and she's gazing at him with love in her eyes. And then he howls, oh, and Maude brings the rose to her nose and smiles and sniffs the rose. Cut to Bart. Hey, why don't you give Mum her present? And I'm sure madness ensues in the Simpsons house not long after that. So what do we make of that?
Again, it's the mirror of reflection. It's look how prepared Ned was. But I'm inclined to disagree with you about saying she has love in her eyes. To me, she again looks like she doesn't look present to me. She has a similar expression to the golf game where she looks completely, whatever's going through her mind isn't what's happening in front of her.
The girl with the faraway eyes, you might even say, if you were your Rolling Stones fan.
Yes.
So we don't think that she's really bought into this. Well, my next question was going to be...
Yes.
Come back.
Yes. I was double checking something because this is what in the professional terms they would call a
Shit show now.
That clip was from I Love Lisa.
So that Valentine's Day episode where Ned dresses up is not from Duffless or from Lisa the Beauty Queen. It's from an episode called I Love Lisa. Is it at least from the same season?
Yeah, it's the correct one. I thought there was 4 in this. I knew there was 4 separate episodes with clips, and I knew that the last 2 clips were from different episodes, basically. So yeah, I just did a little bit of a look, and yeah, that is from I Love Lisa, which is the episode where Ralph falls in love with Lisa.
I choose you. Yes, I love that one. In the grand scheme of things, as endearing as it is that you keep making mystery clips, it's irrelevant because we're interested in the Maude effect. And in this clip, we see Maude with her faraway eyes looking. Now, my question is, what did Maude do for Neddy on that day? Because, Marge did the I Love You bacon and Neddy's obviously pulled out all the stops. What's Maude's Valentine's Day offering up to the altar of Neddy?
I like to think that in the theme of redemption and sticking, let's say that this is the first Valentine's Day since the marriage counselling. So I like to think that she's bought him a new personalised Bible.
Ooh.
With his name on it and nothing underlined.
So here's Ned Flanders embossed on the cover of the Bible, or maybe on the inside cover. You don't want to be putting your name on the front of the Bible, probably. But yeah, that would be a nice gift, wouldn't it? That would be an excellent gift for Ned, especially after she more or less ruined his last one by scribbling all over it. Did she make him a nice breakfast as well? Similarly, an I Love You bacon and eggs ensemble?
I think so, yeah. I think that was something that maybe Marge and Maude maybe took some skills from each other, and I think that they both do that I think that might have been a Marge idea, and Maude has taken it on board.
Interesting theory that they might swap and change those kind of housewifely stories in such a quaint way. It could even be a Springfield tradition, the I Love You eggs and bacon.
Because Marge is more enamoured to Homer than Maude is to Ned, I would say, because Marge puts up with a lot more stuff, and we again just predominantly from it being the TV show The Simpsons, we see a lot more of Marge, being nice to Homer and doing nice things for Homer, but you rarely see Maude doing anything for Ned.
She's generally supportive, although we did question that with the fact that she didn't even bother to show up for a Streetcar Named Desire show. However, she's generally supportive in spirit, but yeah, maybe we haven't seen her do much other than the odd club sandwich here and there, which
Yeah, I imagine she makes good food.
Ooh. Healthy food, wholesome food, like the meatloaf and vegetables she shared last week, maybe. All right, clip 5. Now we're going for it today. today. We did kind of make a deal. We'd only do probably 4 clips in an episode, but we've got 6 in this one. So, in the interest of not running too long, let's jump straight into clip 5. We're in the basically the school hall. It is now ready for a performance. And Principal Skinner comes up and he says, welcome to the theatre for a night of entertainment and picking up after yourself. Haha, they obviously think that's some kind of joke. So they come back to the audience and there's tumbleweed sounds and people coughing. And that's where we see Ned and Maude and Police Chief Wiggum again next to each other for the second clip in a row. Nobody else recognizable in that audience other than those 3. And the drawings of them are, I could only describe it as amateurish.
Yeah.
Their faces look like, that Alien, that Treehouse of Horror one where they get taken over by body snatchers and their faces are slightly off. Is it Bob Dole and Bill Flint or whoever? And their faces are they're not quite as they should be. Everyone's face is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, she's this is one of my favourite. I think I already had a picture of that knocking about because it's my favourite Maude. She's facing forwards again.
Yes.
For a start. Yeah. And she just looks creepy.
It's weird. It's really cool drawing, but it's kind of like how I would draw Ned Flanders and Ned from front on. Anyway, so with the kids launch into, again, one of my favorite Simpsons songs, the one about the mediocre presidents. And, once again, Maude is for the second time in these clips and for like the 10th time in a row in the presence of music. Though this time, you don't have to persuade me why she is or isn't singing. But Rod and Todd are singing and they are presenting this song about the caretaker presidents of the USA. And super funny. It might be good to drop in, Alf Clausen, who wrote all the music and obviously is a genius, wrote in all these different styles. But the lyrics were written by Jeff Martin, who we've talked about before, who was a writer on several of the early shows, but very funny. So Rod is playing Zachary Taylor, the 12th president of the USA, who lasted a single year. And Todd, the taller one, I believe is playing John Tyler, who was the 10th. Now, he took over from William Henry Harrison. I died in 30 days. My favorite line in that song. And
I remember that still that stayed as a fact in my head. That's becoming like quizzes as it come in handy. That I know that guy's name just from that. Also, you mixed up Rod and Todd, but we'll let it slide.
Oh, good Lord. What did I do wrong?
Todd is the small one. Rod is the tall one.
Did I say Todd was the tall one? Oh,
I'm afraid so.
Listeners, reverse the tape and check if that's true. If I did, well, cover me in eggs and flour and call me a pancake because I should know that by now, shouldn't I? 8 episodes in.
The only thing of note that I have to say about this is that Rod and Todd are at the school performing in a school performance.
Yes.
But we still never, at no point, we've seen them in the classrooms. And it makes sense that Chief Wiggum's sat there because this is a Ralph episode and he's the lead in this play and stuff. But it doesn't make sense that if the whole audience is random people, they've picked Ned and Maude to be watching Rod and Todd. But you could have easily removed all 4 of those characters from that scene and lost nothing.
It is weird that again, for like the second or third time, the only recognisable people are the Flanders. But I wonder at that point whether it really was just that the Flanders were like the top tier of secondary characters once you'd got Apu and Chief Wiggum. Maybe the Flanders were the next thing, and maybe they had the same discussions we had. Well, if the kids are there, if it's not Ralph, Rod and Todd have got to be there, and if Rod and Todd are there, then Ned and Maude have got to be there. I'm hoping they have the same level of discussion and take it as seriously as we do. No, Maude would be there.
It's strange, though, that, again, it makes sense that Ned and Maude are sort of the next people in terms of adults, but Rod and Todd are pretty low down on the list of kids, because you've got, like Ralph, Milhouse, Martin, Sherry and Terry. Richard and, I want to say Lewis, were knocking about a lot in the early days as well, friends. Nelson. Like Rod and Todd are very low down on this list of which kids can we use.
Right. Well, I think we milked a good 5 out of that clip, which is essentially just one single frame of a badly drawn Maude. So let's move on to our last clip of the day. This is clip 6. Now, this has got to be Duffless, right? Because this is about alcohol.
Yeah, this is Duffless.
Okay. So Duffless may be a reference to the film Breathless, but I can't remember what happens in that film. or maybe a reference to another film that I can't think of right now. But anyways, they're sat at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting by the looks of it. And an interesting range of characters there. You've got Homer, who I'm guessing has had to go there because of his madness during this episode. I can't quite remember, but I know something along those lines. Reverend Lovejoy and Helen Lovejoy. Lionel Hutz, the lawyer. Otto, who likes to get blotto. Hans Moleman, Carl, and a couple of people I don't think are characters.
That's strange. I'd noticed everybody except for Carl, actually. Helen's there in the same way as the marriage retreat, I think. I don't think she's participating.
So I think it's a church group, and the Reverend and Helen are just facilitating.
Yeah, Hans Moleman has the best line of the scene, though. With, drinking has ruined my life. I'm 31 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Homer's there because Marge basically asked him to go a month without beer. I don't think he did anything that insane. He certainly didn't do anything as bad as the house party with the fly and the glass and the cleavage.
No, it is the weird thing where the level of reaction isn't always to the level of the crime, but it's just what's required by the show. But I would have really gone to town and made Homer do some really horrific stuff. I was going to send him to rehab at this point. Anyway, so Neddy stands up and he says, it's been 4,000 days since my last drink, which is, 11 years or something like that, since my last and first blackberry schnapps. And then we see a flashback to the Flanders bedroom, and there's just pictures of Ned and Maude several places all over the wall, which I thought was somewhat narcissistic. Nobody else. The telephone is on Maude's side at this point. Now, this is a flashback 11 years, so at some point, Neddy's managed to wrestle it over his side, so he's got quick access to call Lovejoy in the middle of the night. But Maude's looking concerned. Maybe she knows Neddy's been hitting the schnapps. I don't know. Ned, did you clip Ann Landers today? Now, Ann Landers is like an agony aunt from the newspapers, and so basically, I'm guessing she makes like a scrapbook or something of clippings from Ann Landers' like agony aunt page. Anyway, so Ned, he's a little bit, worse for wear after this schnapps, and he says, Ann Landers is a boring old biddy. Maude gasps, puts her hand to her mouth, as she has done several times so far in our journey, and says, Ned. And then we cut back, because the drunk booze hound is just so unaware of the intensity of thing he's just said. But later, as we realize, he comes to his senses, and we see him now in real time. He says, I was more animal than man. What do you make of that?
Well, firstly, I was going to look up who Ann Landers is, because I still haven't looked it up after 29 years or whatever of watching this episode.
Well, I've got some Ann Landers facts. So when you finished going through the scene, I did look it up, because I somewhere in the back of my head, I knew that Ann Landers was either like a TV show host or like an agony aunt. So I looked it up. I got some pretty fun facts about Ann Landers for you once you've had a go at this.
Nice. I kind of assumed that it was a TV show they were talking about, which I always thought it was a weird, choice of phrase when she said, did you clip Ann Landers? I always thought it meant, did you record an episode? And I just thought it was sort of a weird Fargo sort of word, maybe.
Interesting.
She's more shocked by this than, I don't know, actually. I was going to say the vegetables, but maybe it's around the same as the vegetable situation. Also, it's nice to know that they've had the house for 11 years, so they must have been there longer than the Simpsons.
Oh.
Because the Simpsons have been there for, like 10 years, because they moved in, maybe like 8 years. They moved in when they were going to have Lisa, I think, into that house. And Ned and Maude were already there. We just didn't know how long they'd been there. And my final point to make is that when she dies, the Praiseland episode, when he talks about Maude's indentation in the bed from where she slept for all those years, but it's on the other side.
And is it the same bed? Because they've got a 4-poster bed, and I don't remember they always have a 4-poster.
Yeah, maybe it could be an older frame, and she eventually swaps sides, but we need to keep our eye on the sides, because eventually she's supposed to be on the other side eventually.
Yeah. So one other thing before I give you the Ann Landers facts is that this is another couple of like really cool and goofy drawings of Maude Maude. I really like it when they draw Maude from strange angles and Gaspard, because they just don't seem to know how to do it often. And so her face just gets contorted into so last week it was like Donald Duck, and this one here, it's like, again, it's super goofy, I think, because she has that big overbite, or her top lip kind of comes out. So she kind of looks super weird from a lot of angles.
They kind of just, again, I think it's because we're still in the early days of animation and stuff, that everybody sort of has, like, if you look on there's sort of a lot of screen caps online of weird looking Simpsons, you know, like mid-turn and stuff like that, and they just look weird, and they're all from, I'd say we're going to maybe start losing that next season. Hopefully not, but I think they get more of a grasp on how everybody looks.
Trained up those new animators, because actually a while back when we talked about the t-shirts, Maude loves Nell, there's a theory that the L is actually a D, but it was not coloured in very well, and so they cut off the curve of the D so it looks like Nell.
Is that your theory?
No, actually, bizarrely enough, that is something that when I started looking at it, I typed in Maude, what did I say? Maude loves Nell, right? And it did come up, and somebody had made a comment on some Reddit page or somewhere. Don't have any more facts for you than that. All right, let me drop some Ann Landers facts on you. So essentially, Ann Landers was the name of a couple of pseudonyms of people, but the main one was a woman who wrote under the name from like the 1950s, essentially, all the way up until something like 2005 or something like that. So for like 50 odd years. And what's really weird is that she's like middle America conservative, which would make sense for Maude to like her. But through the 50 odd years, she threw out some really kind of like left field things. So for example, she was campaigning for homosexual civil rights from the 60s onwards, but at the same time denouncing it as unnatural. She was making cases for legalized prostitution and pro-abortion, but at the same time consistently giving people advice that was very conservative and about moral decisions and things like that, and self-responsibility and things. So it's a little bit weird, and I just wondered how Maude would have taken on some of those things. I mean, this is a person she obviously loved. She's clipping out on a daily basis, or getting Ned to clip out those clips. We don't have time to go into down this rabbit hole too much, but I'm just going to say one more thing. The funniest thing that I saw in the Ann Landers research that I did. In 1996, she informed her readers that they should avoid throwing rice at weddings because if birds eat it, they will explode.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I didn't know it came from Ann Landers.
Well, the advice was apparently erroneous, as the rice is not harmful to birds, and she later recanted.
Oh, really? That's still a thing that goes around that you shouldn't do. It's in common law. But to answer your question, I think she sounds like a very Maude person. I imagine Maude's general outlook on things that might be a little controversial to Christians. I think she might have a similar opinion of, you do what you want, nothing is wrong. You have the free will to do what you choose, but it also doesn't mean I have to like it. So you can do what you want, but I can have the opinion that I don't think it's good, and we can live civilized.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. We can go with that. I'm going to throw that in the Maudetorium, and we'll bring it back again for another route later in our lives. So in the interest of keeping this under the 60 minutes or so regulated government Maude time, we're going to have to just go straight into a couple of letters and then a song. Are you okay with that?
Yes. My last thing I want to throw in there is that the Monorail episode was written by Conan O'Brien.
Ah, yes, and he did write quite a few of these at the time. But I think there's a big one. Sorry?
There's three big. He did three that were pretty, like three big ones, and I feel like Marge in Chains might be one of the other ones. So he's got two Maude. So Conan has some Maude experience.
That's good. If Conan O'Brien wrote one of the Maude ones, that's good, because that throws him in as one of Maude's mummies and daddies. Maude was assembled by a whole group of people along the way, and I kind of like that idea. Alrighty, so wrapping up. So we got a Maude letter that asked us, why did the Flanders give their kids Rod and Todd non-biblical names? Now, I know there's a theory that Rod and Todd and even Maude rhymes with God, and that's why. But surely, this is our good friend Stu of Wigan Town, why would they not give their kids a biblical name?
maybe it's too on the nose. It would make sense to do it. But yeah, the only thing I think is Maude having a strong opinion that she wanted, the names Rod and Todd. Especially, you've already got Rod. So let's look. Rod was first. Rod isn't short for anything either. It's just Rod.
It's not Rodney.
No, or Roderick. It's just Rod. And then, so obviously you're going to need symmetry. So Todd came after Rod.
All right.
But I don't know why they aren't religious names at all. It seems like a bit of a mist. But maybe in terms of real world answers, Ned and Todd are in the first episode of The Simpsons, and it's before they decided that Ned was religious. So I think they probably just already had the name Todd, and then they built the names Rod and Maude. Probably in the same way that they had Todd's design, so they designed Maude and Rod around how they'd already designed Todd.
That does make sense. And, had they thrown in a biblical name at the beginning? But also, I kind of feel that maybe they avoided that because none of the children have names that are biblical. Although Martin, there is a St. Martin, I think. So some of them maybe drift in there. Bartholomew, is that biblical? Sounds biblical.
I don't know. It sounds very biblical, doesn't it?
Okay. Well, here you go. So there's actually 10 mentions of the word Rod in the Bible, but none of them as names. My favorite one was, when Pharaoh speaks to you saying work a miracle, then you shall say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh that it may become a serpent. But I said staff instead of rod, so obviously. Let me try that again.
Say the word.
Take your rod and throw it down before Pharaoh that it may become a serpent.
That's a good one.
Cool one, isn't it?
I do like off topic, but they used to do like Simpsons like collector cards with like very random characters, including Maude actually. Maude, Helen, Luann, the whole gang, and one of them was the inanimate carbon rod, and they have a little circle fact file on all the cards, and the one on the inanimate carbon rod was not to be mistaken with, and then just a picture of Rod Flanders.
Nice, good visual gag. Now, of course, Todd doesn't appear in the Bible anywhere, and also there's a theory that he, because he has the devil's curly hair, is actually the bad one. If we look at the idea of Cain and Abel, siblings from the biblical era, Todd's going to be the one who does the bad deed, isn't he?
I think so. Todd's definitely the confident one of the two.
So, moving on, just before we get to the song, our Graz F, the dude that's kind of pestering us and harassing us on YouTube, he's given us another what I can only describe as an ear bashing. I'm going to read it for you. You are still doing mad stuff, mate. Effing Menke. It has blown my head off, pie and chips. I'll have your crang chad chuff. I think it may be the same message he put last time that he's just put again on another video. I don't feel threatened, to be honest, but I would like to know what's going on in Grams F's mind, that he continues to listen to our episodes, but is obviously disturbed by them.
He's obviously on a journey of his own.
I'd like to think so.
I'd put money. I'm not a gambling man unless it comes to the property rights for our museum, but I'd put money on him having some kind of emotional redemption, and by the end, maybe being Maude's biggest fan. Maybe one day even taking over this podcast.
Well, that would be good to do a whole podcast episode run by Graz F. But we'll see whether that transpires. Now, it's time. Is that time? We got to go. We've once again managed to fulfill our quota of minutes, so we're not going to get in trouble by anybody because we've managed to talk for long enough. Some would say too long. Now, are you ready? You led last week in what can only be described as a storming end song. I like to call the post-mortem, as we mentioned earlier. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to lead the charge?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier. Go for it. You go first.
A handsome shoe buffer.
The Duff Limp, I Love Lisa, Duffless. Lisa the Beauty Queen.
Put out the blaze on the east side of town.
Boring.
Mr. Schnub, I see you as the bad guy that you are.
Mono means one, rail means rail.
Stepping down the steps in time with each other. Ooh, 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 not singing or singing.
A mule with the spinning wheel.
If you think I'm cuddly, ooh, ooh, How?
Pudding can.
Pudding can, horrific drawing.
Hindu friend.
Lionel Hurts and Little Mole Man.
Cushy jobs.
Biddy and Landers gas.
Is there a chance the Trev could bend?
Could bend.
Could bend.
Could bend.
Could bend.
Could bend.
More fun.
The end.
Good job.
We
Good
did
work.
it. Did it. Nailed it. Episode 8.
Good job. And that leaves number 9 to be Marge and Chains, which means number 10 will be the